Do you ever feel as if, even though, even though that you are, obviously we're all human beings, we're all people, but do you ever feel as though you just don't feel like the rest of everybody else where you live, in the society where you live? You know, do you ever feel as though, even though technically, yes, you are human, you do have your flaws and your imperfections and insecurities and what else and whatnot. You just don't relate to everybody else. You don't really, you don't fit the mold. You know, personally, for quite some time now, I just kind of, I feel like I'm that guy in the corner just taking notes, observing everybody. I feel like I'm just studying everybody else because right now I can't really make sense of the world that we live in, and to be honest, I've kind of just I've spotted it for quite some time about I can just sense that something is off. Something is off about other people. Like generally, just most people, you can just see how corrupt and how dysfunctional society is overall. And just being in my local town centre, for example, most people, you're around it all the time, and you know, nobody really knows how to interact with each other. Um, and it's just like we're in this world where everybody is the main character. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't see yourself as the main character in a way of, it's your life, and you've got to do what's best for you. But at the same time, when we all live in a society, when we all live in a community, and we've got to kind of share our space. This place that we live in, the town, village, it's not ours. It's not like we own the village or we own the town, the city. Like it's meant for everyone. It's meant for everyone, and whether we like it or not, we all go to the supermarket, we all go to the shops, we all go to the doctors, and we all share the same communal places. The pub, restaurant, cafe, and remember when it was 20, I think it was 2019, beginning of COVID, the lockdown and that, and everybody was so fucking mad about just toilet roll, and just everybody would me, and it was just so fucking mad. It was very just chaotic. People just selfishly buying and wiping out off just wiping out the shelves, and to be honest, have we really changed much since lockdown? Okay, yes, there's no social distancing anymore. People are not required to wear masks and whatnot. But it doesn't change the fact that it happened, and it exposed people for the true ugliness and bitterness. And I can just, most of the time I'm just anywhere, just trying to just be in my own space and my own company, and I just don't want anyone to disturb me. I can see all this, I can sense all this bitterness around me, that whenever you just don't want to, you don't want to really belong anywhere, you don't want to fit in, you don't want to play your part, your supposed role or something. You can just sense this, like, adversity. And to be honest, there's no adversity. Like, the way I see it as, my life is my life, and everyone else's life is their life. There's no competition. There's no comparison. The fact of the matter is that I don't owe anyone anything, and neither do anyone else. Vice versa. But yeah, talking about the original topic, what I opened this video with, human nature. Human nature right now, I cannot really make sense of it, and it's almost as though human nature right now is more about selfishness and all about just this entitlement, So I would rather not really be part of that, and I would rather just not be in this fucking shit show. Even though we're all human beings, it doesn't mean that I have to associate myself like everybody else. I'm not one of them. And I'll never be one of them. And it's so much better to not be in with the mess and the this social matrix, and I'm in my own league, and I'm just a person who happens to be living in this era, who happens to be born in 1999, and I've experienced the early 2000s, the 2010s, the 20-teens, and now the 2020s. So, and to be honest, there's always been something about people, no matter what era it is, no matter what era it was, there's always been corrupt people. It doesn't matter if it's been the 2000s or, the mid 2000s, the 2010s. There's always been corrupt people. But it's as though this era that we live in right now, it's becoming more corrupt. Like, I'm in these community pages, like these for your town where you live in and your village nearby and whatnot. And you only have to just look, even on social media. Just it's becoming more prevalent, more common for fucking teenagers to just vandalize something, or rob a cafe, or rob something, or stabbing. And all this, what's going on with just crime in general, shoplifting and murders and rapings. It's as though some people just accept it, and it's like, oh well, I guess that's part of human nature right now, for the most part, because it's becoming more and more common, more apparent that this is happening. And a lot of people just accept it and think, well, that's just the way it is. That's just the way things are. But it's not just the way things are. You know, well, it's like it's a new normal to live like this right now. And to be honest, I do not want to be part of a new normal. Like, there's people like me who are just trying to live normally, who keep themselves to themselves. You know, they're not rude to anyone else. And then there's other people who, they don't give a fuck, you know, and it's like they're just defeated. And, like, typically they don't know how to dress, they're just loud and obnoxious and rude. And I just see them completely separate. It's like a completely different breed of human to people like me. And there are people like me. But, you know, those kind of people are either just hiding away and becoming more, maybe they're becoming more adaptable. They might be not going out as much. But there are. And it's kind of like communities that used to be a big thing back in like maybe the 80s or the 90s or whatever. You know, when it came, you know, like punks and goths and emos and all these kind of, you know, all these kind of people. There still are people like that, but what happened is they're more in the closet. They don't want to just express who they are because of the people, the inbreds, of the degenerates of society, who cannot keep their mouth shut, who cannot just accept that this is an individual that makes her own decisions or his own decisions, and he dresses himself the way he wants, is independent. But there's so many people who feel this need that, well, you've got to dress like us, or well, you've got to wear the latest, you know, brand or something of Adidas. And it's almost as though you walk through your town centre, everybody's wearing the same fucking thing. Everybody wants to look like each other. It's like we're in a fucking... It's like clones, you know. It's like we're in a fucking Star Wars world or something where stormtroopers, you know, that's the way I see it. Everybody wants to look like a fucking roadman. If he wants to, you know, if you want to look like a thug. Most people do. And why? You know, like why? Like why would you want to just? You know, what happens is you start listening to this shitty fucking drill, chavvy, tacky music, and it's usually like an artist like H or RD or something, and they'll be speaking about, you know, just like sex, fucking a woman, drugs, knife crime, you know, just, oh, I choked the man out or something, or the man dem or something, and you just like think, what the fuck am I listening to? That'd be my reaction. But so many people are getting inspired by this culture, this fucking roadman culture, and it's absolutely fucking stupid. You know, it's you know, you know, wanting to be illiterate and kind of inventing your own kind of English. You know, you're inventing your own dialect of English. You know, it's like you've got all these dialects, the Geordie, the Yorkshire, and then it's like you've got the roadman, and they invent their own kind of terms and, you know, words. So, you know, I don't really know what human nature is right now. I really don't know, and I don't think I want to know. I really don't think I want to know what human nature is. I'm okay just being away from all the mess and the shit show and I'm okay with not wanting to fit in, and I don't want to be part of this, you know, just this society, just, like I said previously, this social matrix. And I say social matrix because when you watch the Matrix movie, everything is very placid. It's like everything what you think isn't. And this, like basically there's this social matrix, but then there's also just the matrix that we live in right now with the world. You could, I guess you could go back to the Rockefellers owning everything and the pharmaceutical, the food industries, and we all just kind of live in a way that it's kind of like people are not themselves, and they're allowing external things, the media, certain self-help gurus and people online to really make decisions for them. People are not kind of like scratching their head and thinking, oh, the sun used to be fucking orange, ages back. It used to be glowing orange, but now it's yellow. People are not asking these questions on why there's so many changes now in the world, economically and socially, and how people are, and even when it comes down to scientifically, like the actual world, why why there's so many sick people nowadays, why so many people get ill, and people just accept it, and they just think, people get ill, it's a thing, people get older and the immune system, and it's a load of shit really, because it's not that at all. It's the shit that you eat and how you live your lifestyle, and people really just like to be ignorant. A lot of people like to be ignorant and not accept that there are strings being pulled, and life isn't just so simple as it is. But people would rather just fucking bury the head in the sand. People would rather just bury the head in the sand and not know.